Welcome back to the Lab Podcast.
Yes.
This is your host, Adati Morris, and co-host.
Robin Omeka.
And last week we had a very great discussion, and we got so much in terms of feedback from the people that we talked to, especially the men. And we finished by saying today we're going to have a discussion on what is the importance of men growing up, moving from being a young boy into now a young adult male. And I think I will start by looking at it in this way: the responsibilities of young men in the society today. Let's remove the issues to do with the masculinity. Let's remove the issues to do with whatever society is trying to depict men to be in terms of the developmental aspect. The fact that for men, responsibility comes first, and at the end of the day, for that responsibility to be working, we need men who can be able to wake up in the morning, go to work, so that they can be able to provide for their families and also for their communities. So I really hope that today's discussion is going to be really great. I'm Maji Robin.
Manze.
So maybe just to start,
Yes.
I'll go to Robin.
Yes.
What defines someone moving from a boy to a man to you?
Yo. How is that question that short and that packed? Moving from a boy to a man. There are a lot of things you learn. There are a lot of things you are stopped from learning in the current dispensation of society today. And so you find yourself in your transitioning from boyhood to manhood. There are a lot of blank spaces where, for instance, you're told as an adolescent, you are told now you can no longer do A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Whatever A, B, C, and D is.
Yes.
Because for the simple fact that you are now a man.
Yeah.
This is often during culturally acclaimed rites of passage like circumcision,
Yeah.
and stuff like. The most rampant one is circumcision. It's used often as an avenue where you are taught on how to be a man.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of our viewers already know the stories that go around with those kinds of teachings.
Yeah, true.
They have been labeled, rightfully so, as toxic and out of touch with the current context of our society today.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel like a lot of what is supposed to be the transitioning from boyhood to manhood is lost in the politics of gender.
Oh, true.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting space. Yeah, but if I was to speak for myself, I'd say that it's a rough patch. It's a really rough patch. Mm-hmm. When you're coming from a boy to a man, it's almost as if you're coming from a place of you are a child, but then now you have become a man. And so it's like everybody in society, family, uncles, friends, they no longer see you as the child, the boy.
True.
They see you as now a man who needs to put something on the table. And the shift is instant. So and like the entire time, like even when the second you finish your Form 4, it's a rolling ball towards that point in time. So it's a question of this boy needs to go and finish college so that he can get a job with the credentials he has. Then once you finish that college, there's no soft landing. Yes. It's we as your guardians, we taught you, we have done our job, we have paid the fee. Now you go and look. Yeah.
Because if the way you're saying, the way the society views men, and at the end of the day you have gone to school and this is what you're going to achieve, and you look at the kind of pedestal that a man has to reach so that he can be someone who is responsible into the society, is really attached to so many things. Number one, when we're looking at also things to do with families, for a stable family, for a family to say that okay, we are moving forward very well, it means also the choices that the man has in that family, it plays a very crucial role. Then also looking at the communities, because if you look at, if families are really well, then now we broaden the aspect into communities. And for a community to have things that are sustainable in terms of development, in terms of moving forward, it really needs men who at the end of the day can wake up in the morning, make the right decision with a stable mind, and at the end of the day move forward in every aspect and every value that he can give. Now, bringing the conversation into the issue of how should we view men in the society? Should it be in the basis of the aspect of, especially today, those who are privileged to be enjoying what men have built in the society today, really turn to have a blind eye on what they have gained, and really shift the conversation into, okay, you as a man, you are enjoying so much into the society based on you just being a man. Now removing the aspect of value, removing the aspect of whatever he is bringing in the table. And you find for several men, especially for those that I engage and I really talk to, they have broken down into the aspect of, okay, the society is so much negative towards me as a boy, and for me, I really will just sit down and let things roll the way they want to be. So that strength of you waking up and making sure that, oh, I have to do this, I have to make sure for me as a man to propel myself to a certain level, so that by the time responsibilities come, by the time I have a wife and I have a kid, at the end of the day, I can take care of myself as a person. Then I can also take care of the wife. Then when I can take care of two people, then now we can have the conversation of, okay, can we add another? That is, can we have a child? And you find, for me, the discussion really needs to change and to shift into, instead of putting that masculinity or toxic masculinity, which for once I used to really use it, but the phrase has started to really hit me in a very negative way, to what kind of value and what kind of possibilities can this man bring onto the table? What kind of values can you bring into the table? And maybe if I can get your perspective in terms of whatever society portrays and whatever society should portray a man to be, from your perspective, how can you put it?
I think it's important to take stock of the fact that understanding of a man as the space holder for responsibility, while it is not outdated, it is functionally dysfunctional in today's society, because its entire premise is, as the man you should, as the man therefore, and it's the backdrop of that sentiment is, one, you are expected to come up to a place where you will be able to sustain yourself and all your dependents, including your wife, quote unquote. And so the original background of that particular understanding in the construct of society today has always been that the woman will take care of the home. The man will take care of the woman and the children who are now making the home. But then it's not true today, because the thing about responsibility is, when people recognize that you have responsibilities, they conspire almost unanimously to give you opportunities. And so with the responsibility and the opportunity to meet those responsibilities, there comes great power. And so this manifests in things like men being in control of jobs and spaces that otherwise they wouldn't be. Because they've been brought up to understand that you need to focus and get something back home.
True.
But now, look at the society we're living in today. Today, more women get jobs. Today, women have achieved a level of like education, of literacy and stuff like that, that a few years ago was almost taboo in so many places. And so in effect, we are having the narrative around responsibility and men remain the same, when in effect the power to meet said responsibilities has been split almost in half.
True.
And so we're having a scenario where a wide selection of men are experiencing the exact same narrative because they've been brought up in that dispensation.
True.
Where as the man, it doesn't matter what the woman is getting. Like that's inconsequential to the conversation on responsibility. And if she chooses to chip in, then good, you found a good woman.
True.
But if she doesn't, then the onus is on you as the man.
You have to step up.
You have to step up. And you have to cover, because you whining about it is shameful. Apparently. And so there's the larger discussion, I feel, is this lack of definition of the shift in responsibility with the power to direct opportunity. Like when you have opportunity and you are able to make ends meet for yourself, whether you are a man or a woman, and the dependents you have, then the conversation on which responsibilities fall where also needs to be reanalyzed.
True.
Because right now we have men who are dying in depression because they are the men of the house. They can't in effect provide because it's frustrating. And so they also can't talk about it. And one thing you'll find out about men and how they relate to each other is men are almost always the toughest critics of other men.
True.
Like as a man, when another man sees that you're failing to step up, they are very harsh, and it's bitter. Like when a woman brings the question up about your responsibility, it's comic relief, particularly in society today. People laugh about it.
True.
People say a few words here and there. But when men sit with men and there's that notion of, but this guy is absconding responsibility.
There's a problem.
These other men who are living to the code, it's called a code. It's an unspoken code that us, we are men. We wake up every morning, we don't whine about it. We go, we look, and we come, we provide. We don't question the structure. So why are you different? What makes you different? And so there's that socialization of, and I feel like while it's good, it needs a bit of tweaking because it doesn't represent the society we live in today. And so I feel like that's a huge part of the moving wheel in this discussion.
And because from what you were saying, you touched on something to do with power, and we found out that, as you have said, with the society that we're living today, we shouldn't put that responsibility so much on men, because whatever it really does, and it has been doing, especially, it has been associated with power. And the fact is, with power does not directly relate to success. Because I'll give an example. If you have a boss who really focuses on power and exercising power on the juniors, most of the time people don't work on the basis of productivity. They work in the basis of they fear this guy, or this guy is going to do this. So it really does not equate towards success. And then it shifts also the discussion into the patriarchy. These people have been doing this, now trying to blindside where the society has reached today in the basis of whoever was running the progress at that moment.
Yeah.
And also with today, with also women getting into these kind of spaces, what should they add? Not fight, not in the basis of fighting, not in the basis of all this, because the problem with the patriarchal discussion is, for me, in the basis of me talking to different men in my counseling area, is it has started to make young men being very unproductive.
True.
Yeah, no, so like the productivity has really shifted, because now the focus is, if I go and start working and every time I'm being pointed a finger, then I shouldn't be there. No, I'm not being welcomed in that space. If for me as a man I go through maybe depression, as you had said, and every single time the people who are going to put me down are the men. The first people that I should go to talk to will be the men. Then the second people will be like, even the women in my scope of engagement will be like, you are not man enough, you're not strong enough. So you find that discussion really puts men into a pedestal where now they really don't want to engage into productivity. And the funny thing is, it gives them a reason to put a thumbs on it and be like, yeah, I am not doing this, because if I go out, at the end of the day, whatever I'm getting is a little negative. And you find, and I always tell people, the reality of the matter is, even if the lady or the woman is very strong, they also need a powerful man. Yeah, they also need a strong man. Even for those who are very strong and those who are providing, they need that man who is strong, that man who can make that decision, that man who can help in terms of also moving forward, or also pulling the wheel and making sure that the wheel moves forward. And that does not mean that now men or the young boys should come and really put themselves down, because for you to say that a man or a boy is growing up into a man, we also bring out the issues to do with the response, the value, the intention. Because when you are in high school, and right now, in terms of where you are right now as Enigma Creative has to write, has to make sure he produces his skits. He needs to make sure that every single time he's updating his wall, because you have the intention of you building yourself from whatever level you are at that low level to be a person who can earn and also provide for himself. And people really don't put the aspect of intention, because with intention comes sacrifice. Because now Enigma Creative at high school couldn't sacrifice so much in terms of time. You sit, do your research, wake up in the morning, do your research, look at what are the kind of topics that are going on in the society today, so that I put out something that is relevant. But today you have to. So that sacrifice brings, now after you've done the sacrifice, now it brings out consequences, because the consequence is, for Enigma Creative, you will be well known. People will listen to you. Then now you will be put into a pedestal where my guy, if you want to do anything about creativity and something, please reach out to this so and so. And you find this is a discussion where we are not putting issues to do with power, but issues to do, you have moved from that guy who was just a simple, who really didn't care about time, who really didn't care about everything, into a discussion where now, for you as a man and you growing up, you understand there is responsibility, and for that responsibility you have to sacrifice. And for you to sacrifice, you need to have an intention where, what am I sacrificing? And that has to come. You have to we need to have this discussion. So you need to sit down, create, write, so that at the end of the day you have that intention of whatever you're sacrificing for. After you've already sacrificed for, then at the end of the day, the consequence will be you have leveled up to a specific area. So you'll find even the people that you will be attracting, who will be attracting or around you, will be the people who will be pushing you forward. And also, when you bring out the aspect of family, and also you having a wife or having a girlfriend, they'll be like, by the way, if I want to get into a relationship with this kind of a person, he is someone that he's responsible, he knows what he is doing in one way or another, and after he has already known whatever he is doing in terms of his life, we can engage him in one way or another. So So you can see the thread coming now from you as a young man, as you have grown into being enigma creative. There is that aspect of what is the fundamental aspect of my responsibility is for me as a young man into the society. I have to reach this specific point, but for me to reach this specific point where people can view me as a responsible person, then I need to have intention, and my intention will now govern the areas in terms of which areas am I going to engage in. If you're a doctor, your intention at the end of the day is being a doctor and making sure that the patients are okay. To be an artist, you understand in that area. Then after you've already had that intention, what kind of sacrifice am I going to do? For a doctor, I have to sacrifice 6 years. I have to sit, learn, and get to know all these things. As a teacher, I have to sacrifice every day, waking up in the morning and sleeping late, creating all these things. Also a creative, as Enigma, you have to sleep very late when you have an event, wake up very early in the morning to make sure everything is going clear. And for me, with very many people that I've engaged, I've realized that these kind of discussions are not being done to young men, especially in the society today, because we are blinded in the fact that they are born as men and they know. No. They are born in a society where, now I'll bring out the aspect of patriarchy, and the society is really good for them. So they really don't need such kind of talking. But the reality is they really need to understand, what are you going to sacrifice? What kind of intention are you going to have? So that for you as a parent, you need to tell that to your son. For you as a father, that is the discussion that you have to sit down with your son. And for you also as a mother, because we cannot remove the fact that there is an increase when it comes to single parenthood, which really doesn't relay in terms of a good upbringing, but these kind of discussions should have. So like for you, is it something that you see is open in terms of discussion, or there's a little bit of a backlog on it?
What do I see is open for discussion?
Yeah, the discussion on the basis of a young man right now being told or being shown the path towards responsibility, the path towards
yeah, okay. So man, the first mistake is everybody talks about patriarchy like it's something that has been perpetuated by men and has affected only women. And it's not true. It's not. Because if today you went to look for a job, and the person interviewing you for the job is a man, and there's you, and there's a very beautiful lady also in the interview, we can all attest to the fact that there's a notion that that lady will get the job. It's not that she's not qualified. She may very well have all the merit. In fact, in this instance, let's say both of you have the exact same merit.
So you're on the same level.
Yes. But then a lot of these employments happen because the man who is employing has vested interests in the woman who is applying. So it's really about the merit, and that affects you. That's the patriarchy. It affects you. That's perpetuated by a man. But then one of the biggest enablers of patriarchy today is women as well. Case in point, meet a woman who has a son, probably a toddler. And for some reason the toddler is crying. And the toddler is told by the mother, men don't cry. What kind of man are you? And so when you toughen somebody like that from the beginning, there are instances where you can contextually justify it, but then there are also instances where, yes, the child should not cry, But the reason is not because that they are a man.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it should never be because you shouldn't cry because you are a man. Like tell them, don't cry because it's embarrassing, or don't cry because this is not a good place to cry. But don't condition a young boy that don't cry because men don't cry.
Yeah.
Because in effect it means then at some point they will have to find a way to release the pent up emotions from all the frustrations that they will experience now that they are conditioned to not cry.
Yeah, by the way,
you know. And so it become men growing up as adolescents become more susceptible to things like drug abuse of the hardest kind of narcotics.
Yeah, true.
Things like addictions to things like pornography. There's a whole host of things, you know. And so our boys, but to bring the discussion back to your question, is the transfer fluid, I believe is what you're asking. I think not. I think it isn't. And I think it's up to boys and men from the older generation who have an understanding of their times and have lived through our times and can make the correlation to help the boys and young men of today to inform their decisions. But such kind of exchanges cannot happen if these boys and these older men don't have avenues or spaces where they can meet. And so that's a whole generation of people like going away with knowledge or an understanding of what a transfixion of what being a man was when he was young vis-a-vis what being a man is to the younger generation today, and the correlation between the two.
True.
When you go to family gatherings today, for the women in those family gatherings, doesn't matter their age. They will all be found in the same place. They will either be peeling potatoes or preparing something, but they will all be within the same space where they talk about stuff and issues, you know. And it's not that now all you women, let's sit down and talk.
No, true,
it's in the soft communicated implied actions, deeds, relations, you know. When your aunt is cutting onions with your other aunt who is now let's say cutting tomatoes, and you are their niece and you are there boiling water or fetching water, there's a sense of I have been accepted into this womanhood that now I'm experiencing by implication or by purely by being in proximity of the women who I see as women way above me. But what happens when it comes to the boys? It's like the men will set up their bottles and drink and talk there and talk about politics. The boys should come together and go and find something to do. You know, and so there's a lot within how our society operates that is disenfranchising the young boy from a much needed growth.
True. And I think then now you find the aspect of giving the boy the freedom just by thinking the society is okay for them. And we do not equate this freedom, because I accept that yes, everyone has the freedom to make the choices that they have to make, but now we cannot give a young man, for him as the way he's young, in terms of making those choices as he's growing up into someone that needs to be a responsible person in society. Because for him, he will choose to sit, he will choose to, the way you say, to take the drugs, because at the end of the day he is trying. There is no one who is every time keeping him in check and telling him like, oh, you need to do this. Hey, my friend, for you as a man, the system is this way. We are living in an age where you will see an application where you will be told youth and women, but there will be no man. But it doesn't mean that there are no men in the society who have that qualification. So we find that there is so much what do we call affirmative action. There's so much affirmative action that is trying to be put into society where women have to be in the front, but forgetting that even there is young men in the society who are being born in the same structures who also need to be in those specific spaces. So what should we do? What should we do to these young boys? Because I was having a discussion with someone and I was telling him, just showing a man the responsibility that you can be a plumber. If you become a plumber and you go to train yourself to be a plumber, then at the end of the day, there is a value that you're adding in the society. And if that man or young boy can be told every single time, anything, any simple activity or any simple action that you will sacrifice and give that time to, will grow into something that is a potential that system really needs. And at the end of the day, if you are at that point, you will create the need. There will be a need, because I've been told several times that plumbers have what do we call them? They've rescued so much life more than doctors. Because plumbers, if your house didn't have very good plumbing, my friend, sanitation won't be there. So at the end of the day, there will be a very big problem. People will be drowning. So you find that those simple, like making sure that young men understand their impact in terms of infrastructure, their impact in the terms of development, and also their impact in terms of the society moving from one specific level into another specific level becomes, if they have or if they're being told such kind of things, it is very important for them, so that now they look themselves as people of value. They don't look at themselves like people who have been for a very long time be depriving these people of their rights. Now they're not, I should not engage in this because even this lady needs also to engage in this. No. So that even for another man who's giving out opportunities the way you said, he's giving opportunities based on merit, not in the basis of I have maybe invested interest, or in the basis of if I do not give this job to this specific person, then I'm going to have a problem with the law. So that now we have equal opportunities. Because if you have equal opportunities and everyone can go through the same system, every young man, because I'll give an example for primary school. When you were in primary school, everyone was like, classes will be the same, except the places of beating, because for men there's a casa. But for the responsibility in terms of classes, it was the same. But the changes started coming when we started judging on people now passing. Like, you see, for me, I passed, but I dropped. I couldn't go to university, maybe because of only 1 point. But there is someone who we were in the same class, did the same thing, and got a lower grade, but got the same, went to the same course that I really wanted, and I really couldn't go because of one. So you find if you have a system where every single man sees it is that way, the boys will be like, even trying is a little bit hard, because how if I missed 1 point and someone who is behind me got it, because at the end of the day, because of maybe a specific gender or maybe because of a specific area, you find for them they really lose that aspect of me trying, me going too hard. The society is really hard for me. If the society is really hard for me, then let me just sit at home. Let me do so. We have now a society where now we have unresponsible men. And the problem that I always have is with these that have been given these opportunities are the ones who come and now start bashing this man like, men today are very irresponsible. Men today really don't want to wake up in the morning and push themselves towards a specific area. But for me, if in primary school it happened the same, then I went also to high school and also happened the same. Then I went to an interview and I had even higher papers and the same thing, like I was not picked because we have to have women in that system, it really portrays a very negative thing in my mind. I'll be like, I feel mwanaume tu ni kustruggle. Unaona, lazima nipitie hizi vitu zote, nifanye nini, and it really gives out a very negative aspect in terms of development in the society that is today, which will really give me an opportunity for us to discuss the aspect of consciousness, being a conscious person in the society. Because I remember, for me, I'll give an example for my father, because my father really kept the discussion on consciousness, and he was really telling me, as a man, you need to grow up and understand that when you'll have a family, every responsibility is going to be on you, even the shame and even the disappointments that come with it. And for me, it really changed my perspective in terms of me growing up as a young man, and it really defined the areas of, you've been doing this, you've been doing that, men, for all this time you've been doing this. And I had to work hard, because I really need to be at a point where, even if my wife is the one who's providing, or we are all providing and we are at the same level, the reality of the matter is, as he told me, is you need to be conscious, because that is the only thing that brings success. You need to wake up, not put feelings, but put the aspect of, if I make this decision right now, the consequences are going to happen to a family, and it is going to go directly to me. No. If I make sure that I wake up and work very hard, then it means my children are going to go to a better school. No. So at the end of the day, that consciousness of a young man should be brought up and should be put for several young men, so that they can start viewing aspect of, if you as a man and you have a family, that responsibility of it moving forward, that responsibility of when there is shame, or there is one or two that is going to happen to the family, you as a man, you're going to bear it. And at that point in life, you are the one who's going to make that decision. Because I was told, if fire breaks out right now here, and women are here, children are here, and men are here, every woman will turn, even that woman mwenye ni CEO will turn to be like, hey, Robin, what do we do? No, so at the end of the day, he was like, that is something that comes natural, because we are predisposed to be the ones who provide security. And for you to provide security, then you need to have a conscious mind. And you find, with the discussion that we have had, it is really hard for you to have that conscious mind when every single time it is all war. It is all, oh my God, this person. Every place you go, and I need to get this job, I'm like, no, women. There was a point that I think we were applying with you jobs, and we found out that 3 or 4 or 5 times we were getting jobs that were being told, women need to apply. And you are angry, and you're like, is it that for a man I have to be young for me to get opportunities? Or should us be ladies, so that at the end of the day we get these opportunities? Or what does this mean? Because out of 5 applications, 3 out of them are women and young people, and it became a very big problem. So I think we will continue our discussion from the next part from here. Thank you. Another thing that I really wished us to discuss was the aspect of young people really not getting the right opportunities, just because they are blinded with the high and mighty. Let me say that, although it really doesn't sound it really doesn't sound that nice. But the fact that, if I'll give an example for me, I had a very big, especially at a young age, until maybe the time that I really started to have a one-on-one discussion with my father, I had a very big problem in terms of me looking at the environment that I'm growing and feeling that I am the one. I am the boy, I'm the man, I can do everything. No. I can take as many risks as I want, but at the end of the day, not in the basis of consequence, as we had talked earlier, but in the basis of I have to prove that at the end of the day I'm a man. And through that, it really blinded me in so many opportunities. It really blinded me in so many areas where people really wanted to engage me. And by the time it was really hitting me, it was later in life. And even if I really didn't have that discussion with maybe my father, I couldn't get the grasp of what kind of opportunities I had lost as a young man and what kind of responsibility I had in terms of the society that we're living today as a young man. And by the time it was really hitting me, several things had passed me and several things had really I really had not gotten. Even if you look at even ladies of our same age who are every single time they were being told, in this society uko marginalized, you have to work extra hard. And if you find the level that they were in, especially when we were 24 years of age, they were like very far. And for us as young men, you're still the one who's struggling, or they still. And now let's add now the issues to do with the society today, where now opportunities are like women should be employed first, others will come later. It became a really big problem. So from you, as Robin, what kind of perspective do you have in that area? Because for me it really affected me, and I think for me we have had this discussion. I was telling you I hated school so much.
Yeah. So I'd say that I do not disagree with what we are calling high and mighty. I feel it's an important paradigm for this reason. We are bringing up boys to become men in a society that is going to expect them to almost do miracles.
By the way,
And so what you're calling high and mighty, I believe so many other people like to call it the alpha male, tendencies. Let's call it a syndrome even. And so it's basically young men believing that the fact that they are youth, it gives them enough credibility to go out there and do something about it. And I will quote like the sentiments of I know you know Jordan B. Peterson.
Very listen to
and
him.
He talks extensively on some of these things. And at one point I got him talking about what young men need to do in today's generation. And he said young men need to be monsters.
True.
They need to go at every opportunity. They need to grab every single thing that comes their way. They need to unleash their monsters. They need to first unleash the monster, then learn how to control it.
True.
So in that order. So I feel like the biggest problem is what we are calling high and mighty, or in this case the alpha male syndrome, is young men just trying to do the most, but without caring for the consequences of the responsibilities that their decisions and choices bring. And so I feel like the conversation should be, as you make your decisions and choices as a young man, who should rightfully not be afraid of making decisions and risks and choices. Are you aware truthfully of the consequences? Do you understand the full length of the repercussions of what you're about to do? Because I feel like that is the problem. Because in a society that expects young men to be the miracle makers we know it expects them to be,
by the way,
then you cannot afford to tell them to not be out there. And if the high and mighty scenario is anything to go by, then I feel like it's a completely necessary, a completely good thing. The only problem is, how do you moderate it?
Oh yeah.
How do you control it? Are you deliberate about it? Because being deliberate helps. Yeah, and young men, young men, we have a problem. we need to grow up understanding that a lot is expected from us.
Yeah.
And very little gratitude will come back, because that's just how it is. Nobody meeting you will expect you to not give.
Yeah, definitely.
As a man, nobody ever comes to you with the notion of, it's about time you received something. It's always, but why have you not given?
What are you giving here?
Yeah, but when the lady gives, it's like, oh, you shouldn't have. This is such an inconvenience to you.
How can we?
Is there no man who can give instead of you?
Yeah.
And so it's and that's just how society is.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It can change. How that can change is, we need to have these conversations.
Yeah, true.
Because if we talk about it, we start thinking about it, and we start acting on it.
Yeah.
Even in the smallest of ways. And these small ways are how a society is programmed.
Yeah, true.
That's how a society is programmed.
Yeah. Because the way you've said, I've remembered something that young men need really to understand, that the society is very brutal.
Yeah.
It's super brutal, and the fact is, if you want to act the good boy, the everything, the only thing that others see is just like you're a domesticated cat. And if in terms of you being domesticated really does not equate for you being a successful person, especially in the society that is today. So at the end of the day, you need to take that leap of faith and understand that if I jump from this cliff, I'm going to break my leg. And am I able, in terms of taking up that responsibility and being a greater person in terms of life? Just the same way I always equate it to Peter Pan. A very good story, Jordan Peterson. A very good story that he really uses, where this young man really didn't want to grow up, because the only thing he saw in the society was whatever is being told every single time, that men are brutal. So now they bring out the character of Captain Hook, where Captain Hook represents whatever society portrays men have been, where he has been this man, this person who has been clinging to power, who every single time has to fight, has to destroy all the good that other people bring in the society, and who is always being chased by a ghost that has a clock that is in terms of looking at time. And for him, he was like, if I will grow up and be like this guy who is Captain Hook, then I shouldn't. So I will let me remain that young boy who is a little bit naive, so that I still keep on doing the naive things, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't equate to success, or it doesn't equate to someone growing up. Like, he's not taking that risk, like you have to go jump over the cliff. See, if you jump over the cliff, what are the consequences that are going to get? And you'll be like, now I know, if I jump over the cliff, I'm going to break my legs. So if I have a child or a young or a son in the next generation, I'll be like, do not jump over the cliff, my friend, because that is not what you need to do at this moment. Whatever you need to do at this moment is you need to buy a parachute. So you find out that now the older generation of men are modeling young men into people who are responsible, not people who are domesticated. Because for domesticated people, I will tell you, that really doesn't work. And I really loved when you said that men really don't get anything, because I think from our previous conversation, when I told you, my father told me, I know I'm paying this fee, you're going to university, I'm going to pay, but I know you're just going to give your mother money. But for me, even if I call you and I tell you, hey, I'm on the brink of everything, there's nothing that you're really going to give me. You're really going to give me as a young man. So for me, for him, he was like, I've come to accept that the fact is I am going to give. You're going to call, I have to act on it. But at the end of the day, I should have the lowest in terms of expectations of whatever I'm going to, whatever I'm going to get out of it. So, Robin,
Yes.
tell me, what can you conclude and tell this young man out here?
Young men like me.
Yeah, but though we are young, see, we're not showing like we are old.
We're not old people.
Yeah.
I feel that we need to understand, we need to take like a 360-degree view of the society we find ourselves in today as young men.
Yeah.
All the people who we can look up to for advice, particularly elderly men, are in the same society with us. Despite the fact that we have issues like the fact that as a man you have to provide, and the reality that as a young man you have not yet become somebody with that ability.
Yeah, true.
Whether or not you are doing something to remedy that situation puts you in an awkward position, because a woman your age is looking for a man who can provide.
Yeah, true.
And if the men of your age cannot, then it's that much easier for the older men to abuse the boundaries between themselves and young women.
Yeah, true.
Because the young women now are left with no option. And it's also because society has conditioned us all that the highest bidder, and here the bidding is only resource-wise.
Yeah, true.
So women forego a lot of good things in the pursuit for an alpha provider, somebody who can cater for material needs. It is accepted, it is necessary. It's just, it can't be the only reason you're with someone.
True.
Because if the person you're with does not provide you with emotional support, if they do not cater for your mental health, then exactly what is the definition of support? What's the definition of provision? It's very skewed. Because in effect, you waste years of your life getting a raw deal. And when you're finally awake to the fact that what you got was a raw deal, it's too late. And for the men, we need to be more proactive in engaging, the older generation of men. Often when I board matatus or when I meet people in queues, waiting to be served in government offices or wherever it is, I quantify the men in those spaces. I always find myself profiling them, and on so many instances I have had the chance to establish conversation with these men. And they are often elderly men. I almost always look for a ring on their fingers, because then I quantify the advice they can give me to that regard based on that. And these men are very receptive, and they're also very respectful. They won't indulge you in conversations that you haven't expressed interest in. But some of the most beautiful conversations I've had with these men have been, I've asked them literally, I am a young man, I'm in my 20s, and I see you're elderly. clearly you have outlived me by so many years,
Yeah.
and you look happy. Plus, I see from the ring on your finger you are married. If you were to tell me in 5 minutes a piece of advice that you would want somebody of my age to get to know, what will it be? Man, these men share wisdom. They share so much wisdom. This one time I was at the Sharia house.
Yeah.
And I was in line. It was early in the morning. It was at around 7:30. So we were waiting for the offices to be open. And if you know government offices, if we were there at 7:30, then it means we are going to wait for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And so we were there in the lobby seated, and then he was like, he needed help with something. He needed me to help him with a pen, which I had, so I gave him a pen. But then I used that as an opportunity now to kickstart the conversation.
Yeah.
So this man is a bishop at a church, and he has been happily married with his wife for like around 35 years.
Yeah.
And he has 3 daughters, I think, and 2 sons, if I remember correctly. And so I asked him, all these years of marriage, your belief in God and your religion or whatever notwithstanding, if you could give me an impartial advice that's not tied to whether or not I am a Christian, an advice that's tied to the fact that I am a man and it's information I need, particularly because I'm young. And he told me truths, he told me realities, facts. He told me at your age you might be pulled to look at what the woman you are looking for will look like. It's understandable. You need to build the tenacity to know that it's not all about things like that. Then I asked him, yeah, but then now how do I select? Yeah, like I literally asked him, if you are to tell me how to select, it'd be like you just need to establish a few bare minimums, you know? One, the culture you are in and the culture the woman you are trying to date or marry is coming from shouldn't be that much apart.
Yeah.
Not that it being apart is an issue, but if it is, then you also need to take stock of how far apart.
Yeah.
And are you willing to make the adjustments?
Yeah.
And he told me that these things, I'm sure you've heard of, don't marry from a certain tribe, don't do this. And I think we should have that discussion at some point in time.
Yeah.
He told me stuff like it's not out of what you hear is don't marry from a certain tribe. What they mean is be careful of who you marry and how they are socialized. Because their socialization informs their habits, informs their personality, informs how they engage with life.
Yes.
And that's something worth considering. And so if you look at it deeply, people from different regions, different tribes, different cultures are socialized differently. And that informs how they engage with different constructs of relationships, like marriage, dating, courting, and stuff like that. So you need to take stock of stuff like that. And then he also told me, and this one was my favorite, he was like, and you need to come alive to the fact that there are only ever 2 decisions that as a man you will make that will change and shift your life phenomenally. The first one is what you want to do occupationally, and hence informing what you study.
Yes.
Because what you choose to study informs in one way or another what you do. And studying is not only formally going to school. If you choose to spend 3 hours with a plumber every day for 5 weeks, at the end of 5 weeks you will be the closest thing to a plumber. Because purely by proximity. And so learning is the same. And then he also said that the second choice a man will ever make that will define his life is the woman he chooses to marry. And like, because it's that one choice it determines or supersedes where your children will be brought up, what their names will be, what cultures they will be exposed to. Like, there's so much, and you can't afford to make those two decisions based on how somebody looks or what everybody tells you should do. You know. And so it's important, like as a young man, he told me, you need to sit down and really think about those things, because they potentially are linked to every other decision you make from that point onwards. So ask men, ask elderly men. They will give you advice.
I tell you guys, I have nothing to add to whatever he has said. But with the conversation with the old men, remember when we were there was a time we were traveling to Mombasa. Then we met this old man and we had a conversation all the way from Nairobi.
The engineer.
Yeah, the engineer. We had the conversation from all the way from Nairobi to Mombasa, and the kind of information that we got, especially on the issues to do with finances, especially for a young man. Not even you being with a family, you as a young man, in terms of what kind of decisions you make, what kind of investment you make, the fact that there are some people who will sell their vehicle and go buy land, and for you'll be like, why did you do that? And the kind of decisions that you make every single time as a young man and how it affects you and your future really changed my perspective in terms of where should I invest, where should I put my money. Because for him, it was like, right now you're getting 50 shillings. What is your plan with the 50 shillings? Are you going to eat the 50 shillings, or are you going to eat 20 shillings out of that? And the 30 shillings, where are you going to put? You're not just going to invest in anything. What specific area are you going to put? And what are your plans at the end of the day to make sure that these monies are going to regenerate and the output is going to be something that is going to benefit me or the generation that is yet to come? For me, I just say the conversations with older men. For us as young men, we need to kickstart. Because I always say, for them, they lived in a generation where them as young men had to talk to the old men so that the conversation can come. Just the same way as greeting. They had to greet the older men, not the other way around. And for people who have lived in that generation and have grown up in that generation, and it has benefited them in one way or another, we should not ignore that and be like, if they are grown in that, let's put aside our modern ways of life and be like, okay, in which way can I be the one sparking that conversation? In which way should I be the one, like, I really need to control the conversation, where it is not in the aspect of being given the rules, or do this or do that or do this, but in the aspect of, this young man has asked me on how should he choose a wife, or this man has asked me on how should I invest, or this man has asked me on how should I carry myself, especially in the world that we are living in today. And most of them won't really keep the information, and they're going to share. So that is also something that we are challenging the young men, like, please, the world is brutal. Go walk, go ask, so that at the end of the day you can get that information out of these people. Then number two,
you lose nothing by asking.
You'll never lose anything. Then developing the thick skin. Young men need to understand that we are living in the society that it is really tough. And for a young man, there is nowhere, we always say, there is no young man who is born today in Africa, or in Kenya, or in the world. When you are born, there was a letter of job that was sent to your home. No, you'll have to work hard, you have to toughen up, and at the end of the day, you need to look for it with your bare hands. And even at that area that you're going to meet other men, and you're also going to meet women who the society has put them there. So the competition never ends. It is always, okay, what can I do? What can I do better? What can I do better so that I can improve myself, so that I can be better in over and over and over and over again? I think for me, and whatever he has said in length. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It has been great. Today's discussion has been it has been awesome, huh? Yeah. Follow us, my guys, on Facebook. Facebook you have Anika Initiative. You have Smart Talk Cafe. We're going to be on YouTube. You'll get the on YouTube Anika Initiative. Also Smart Talk Cafe. Also under the podcast, the Hub podcast, you can get the audio of the discussion that you have today. Let's have this discussion. Let's chat. Let's see. Let's now open these conversations about young men. Let's discuss and let's see how we are going to move forward. And you are supposed to perform today. Do you remember? Or should we postpone to the next? Should we postpone to the next one?
Camera guys is nothing in the negative.
In the negative.
About postponing. Now what will I perform for you guys today?
Are you doing something or should we postpone to the next? Okay. So, my guys, let's meet next. Whatever I'm calling for action, young men, please, let's discuss. Let's talk about this. Let's meet on our social medias. Let's continue the discussion. Until next week, have a great time.
Peace.